Is this world an illusion? What is Maya? How do we end suffering? The answers to these questions are only revealed if a deep spiritual introspection is made. Let's hear a story from one of the ancient scriptures of Hinduism, namely the Bhagavad Purana. Brahma, the god of creation, was alone sitting idle in his chambers. There existed nothing but him, and he was getting utterly bored. Therefore, he decided to create a beautiful goddess named Maya. Maya, upon her existence, insisted Brahma play a game with her to entertain him. But she asked him to create a setup before the game could begin. Brahma agreed to her conditions and followed her instructions to generate a universe containing the sun, moon, planets, and life on earth, ocean, mountains, and everything. Maya appreciated the creation of illusion and further instructed him to create an intelligent animal that could appreciate his creation. He thus created humans and was getting excited for the game to begin. When Brahma impatiently asked her when the game was about to begin, she said to him, "I'm now going to make you forget what you are, and you have to try and find yourself." She then cuts him into countless tiny pieces and puts a piece inside every human. She smirkingly announced that now the game of hide-and-seek begins. The universal truth was revealed to the ancient Rishis and Munis during their austere meditative practices. During their trance-like states, all their questions were answered and doubts were cleared as if they heard the creator of the universe speaking directly to them. This knowledge was then transferred to their eligible disciples through oral transmissions. Generation after generation, this tradition continued, and this knowledge was given the name Vedas. They're also called Shrutis, which in Sanskrit means heard, as they were heard directly from the creator. Therefore, in Hindu traditions, the Vedas are considered the supreme authority and the divine manifestation of the Creator, and not simply some words out of his mouth. Later, a great saint named Veda Vyasa classified the oral knowledge being transmitted into categories and wrote 4 scriptures, namely Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda. He also wrote the Mahabharata, which also includes the Bhagavad Gita, the 18 Puranas, and the Brahma Sutras. Within each Veda, there exist 3 classifications. Karma Kand deals with religious rituals and rites. Upasana Kand is concerned with contemplative exercises, and Jnana Kand is related to spiritual knowledge and philosophies. The evolution of this divine knowledge continued, and various rishis later composed more than 100 Upanishads, expounding upon the philosophical and knowledge section of the Vedas. Categorically, 6 major philosophical systems have been developed from the Upanishads. These are Samkhya, Nyaya, Yoga, Vaisheshika, Purva Mimamsa, and Vedanta. All of them gave authority to Vedas and therefore to Upanishads as the guiding principle. The Hindu system is therefore considered strictly Vedic. Although the universal truth is one, there are multiple philosophies and several interpretations of the Vedic texts. It is natural for a beginner to get confused and question the integrity of the system. The spiritual journey is from finite to infinite, and the Vedas take us towards infinity, which has no beginning and no end, while our earthly existence is established in the finitude. Each person's limitedness is bounded by his predispositions, tendencies, conditioning, and abilities. These constitute the different starting points of various individuals' finite existence. Different philosophies, therefore, act as different required vehicles towards the same destination of infinity. The Indian system didn't stop at admitting the authority of Vedas and devised many other non-Vedic approaches like Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, intending to reach the ultimate truth. For those inclined towards the approach of knowledge and who would like to explore the methods of Jnana Yoga, Advaita Vedanta philosophy is instrumental. The Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutras form the basis of the sophisticated philosophy. Advaita is the Sanskrit word for non-dual, and Vedanta for the conclusion of Vedas. The philosophical system of non-dualism derived from the concluding parts of the Vedas is thus known as Advaita Vedanta. Adi Shankaracharya developed this philosophy based on his mystical experiences of self-realization, guided by his unique understanding of the Brahma Sutras. He preached Advaita Vedanta throughout India around 800 AD. This philosophy was introduced to the West for the first time by Swami Vivekananda in the 19th century, and saints like Swami Chinmayanand contributed immensely to spreading it throughout the globe. So what is non-dualism? To best understand the core of this philosophy, consider yourself dreaming. Within the dream, you play a character that experiences different scenarios. All emotions of pain or pleasure that are being felt, it is experienced by the character within the dream. During the whole time, you weren't aware that it was a dream and took it for real. But the moment you're awake, the emotions that the subject of the dream was feeling disappear, and you realize that it was a dream. Outside your dream, the dream character, the dream, and the accompanied experiences have no separate existence. It was an illusion the entire time. This knowledge, when extended to your regular waking state, you can appreciate that this could be another dream. The sense of you as a viewer now watching this video could be a dream. This dual and distinct identification of a subject and an object could merely be an illusion of this grand dream that seems so lively. The underlying reality could be just the universal consciousness dreaming of all of this. This is a big claim. How do we know that this is not just our imagination? It could be, but can you with 100% certainty claim that it is simply your imagination? The great enlightened saints like Adi Shankaracharya, Sri Ramana Maharshi, and several others personally experienced the waking from the regular phenomenal state. From their experiences, they've shared that apart from the deep sleep, dreaming, and waking state, there is a fourth state called Turiya. When they entered that state, everything became clear. Just like everything becomes clear when one wakes up from a dream. They described Turiya as the state of pure non-dual consciousness, which is infinite and all-pervading. Just like all the characters and experiences of a dream dissolve into the dreamer, the phenomenal world, including our ego, also dissolves into pure consciousness upon entering Turiya. Advaita Vedanta explains that the primary cause of our suffering is the false identification of ourselves as a distinct subject apart from the rest of the world. In a difficult dream, the body and mind feel the pain, even though it is an apparent illusion, because the subject of the dream has falsely associated itself with the body and mind of the dreamer. If we dispel this ignorance and work on ourselves to view our dreams without any false identification, then we can stop suffering in our dreams. Similarly, if we attain the knowledge and work on ourselves to witness the phenomenal world without wrong identification, then we can end our sufferings. Advaita Vedanta explains the cause of false identification with its classic example of rope and serpent. In the absence of adequate light, a rope is mistaken for a snake, thus causing fear and anxiety. This false identification is caused by ignorance, but as soon as the light brightens or you investigate it to check its reality, the snake and your fear vanishes. During this period, the rope wasn't posing as the snake and changed back to the rope upon your inquiry. It was your mistake to believe it to be otherwise, but the absolute reality of the rope remained unchanged throughout. Similarly, consciousness alone is the all-encompassing reality. Everything else, including our bodies, minds, and the phenomenal world, appears to the consciousness because of ignorance. Much like the appearance attributes of a snake, like that of the scaled skin, a head, maybe the tongue, etc., materialize in our minds even without their absolute existence, the appearance of separate subjects and objects materializes to consciousness owing to ignorance. A separate entity called the ego, clinging to its own body and mind, is also the function within this ignorance. In the linguistics of the Shastras, the all-encompassing consciousness is called Brahman, the false appearance of consciousness, including the ego, different objects around it, and all the phenomena, is collectively termed Maya. Maya is not something separate from Brahman. It is resting within Brahman and is the inherent power of Brahman. Because of Brahman's desire to engage in a play, Maya comes into existence as a manifestation of the subjects and objects. Aham, the ego, is the part of Maya and borrows its light from Brahman to experience its Maya. The next logical question that arises is, why ignorance exists? Ignorance is the innate constituent of Brahman itself. It is one of the powers of Brahman. It exists to facilitate Brahman in its desire to engage in the play of Maya. Without it, the entire play won't be possible, would it? It enters into the mode of ignorance and experiences its various manifestations. It is because of this ignorance that the ego has a sense of incompleteness embedded within it. In this process, the ego builds tendencies of cravings and aversions around its phenomenal experiences. Therefore, it needs to be cleansed of those tendencies before reminding itself of its real nature. In the snake and rope example, as soon as the ignorance is lifted, the perception of the snake disappears immediately. But until then, you can't fully escape the fear. Likewise, ignorance needs to be eradicated to enable the realization of the entire truth and end the cycles of suffering. Advaita establishes ignorance or avidya to be the real reason behind our sufferings. Eradication of the suffering thus requires the uprooting of ignorance through knowledge. The commentaries of Brahma Sutras by Sri Adi Shankaracharya firmly uphold knowledge alone as the solution. They approve of devotion and selfless actions as enablers and good support systems, but not as substitutes. There are some preliminary qualifications for the attainment of this divine wisdom. These are mumukshata, which means a burning desire to be liberated from suffering, vairagya, or dispassion for worldly objects, and vichara, or the ability to discern eternal from non-eternal. Only when the mind becomes clear of its impurities of cravings and aversion, the pure knowledge pierces the mind and brings about illumination. It professes a threefold approach of Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasan. Shravan means listening to or studying the scriptures under the guidance of a qualified teacher. Manan is the process of clarification of doubts through self-reflection, further reading, or arguments with teachers and peers. Nididhyasan is the constant meditation upon the truth known through the above steps until it is realized or assimilated. Nididhyasan consists of 15 steps that need to be practiced with utmost sincerity and dedication to reach the final goal of liberation. Most of the steps bear the same name as that of the limbs in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, but their meanings, as expounded by Adi Shankaracharya, are different. The following are the 15 steps in that sequence. Yama, or the restraint of all the senses from its outgoing tendencies by employing such knowledge as all this is Brahman. Niyam, the continuous flow of one kind of thought, that is, I am Brahman, and the exclusion of all other thoughts. Tyaga, renunciation of the universe by contemplating that everything, including me, is Brahman, and thus coveting nothing. Maunam, dwelling upon the fact that silence is the real expression of Brahman by practicing silence for varying periods. Desa, practice of solitude. Brahman alone is solitary, since it admits of no second. Therefore, by establishing yourself with the Brahman, you can practice solitude. Kala, dwelling upon the fact that Brahman itself is the time and creation is produced out of his desire in no time. Asana, a serene state of constitution in which the meditation of Brahman flows spontaneously and unceasingly. It doesn't necessarily mean sitting for a long time. You could be jogging and still established in the blissfulness of the Brahman. Moolabandh, restraining the mind by completely merging it with the Brahman. Dehasamya, practicing equipoise of the limbs by merging all bodily sensations and experiences with the Brahman. Drishti, practicing noblest vision by no distinction of high or low, great or small, and incorporating the vision of knowledge of non-dualism. Pranayam, holding the view of negation of the phenomenal world while breathing out, building the thought, I am verily Brahman, while breathing in, and steadying that thought while holding the breath after breathing in. Pratyahar, withdrawal of all the senses by seeing the Brahman in everything. Dharana, steadying the mind through the realization of Brahman wherever the mind goes. Dhyana, remaining independent of everything as a result of unassailable thought, I am Brahman. And Samadhi, the complete forgetfulness of all thought by first making it changeless and then identifying it as Brahman. The Vedantin's way of ending the suffering or attainment of self-realization is through eradication of the ignorance that the world is real. This divine knowledge is first known through learning about it from a competent guru, followed by using our intelligence to argue against the philosophical or logical inconsistencies that our minds may present. Once our intellect has completely accepted the congruency of this knowledge, it has to be assimilated into our daily lives through the practice of 15 steps of moment-to-moment meditation upon Brahman. This practice ultimately results in the dissolution of ego and thus the dissolution of all the sufferings. The practitioner sees everything, including himself, as the one reality and becomes equanimous to pleasant as well as unpleasant situations. He becomes kind and compassionate towards everyone because he sees himself in everyone. He performs all his actions without any selfish desires. As for him, there's nothing to gain or lose. His mind and body get established in the blissfulness of Brahman, and he becomes fulfilled in his life.